I hope.
We're back live after technical difficulty.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator Ballard.
We're glad you're plugged in, Mr. Chair.
Yes, I'm plugged in now and charging up as we speak.
Good.
So did you make any progress in my absence on Better Places?
Oh, we won't say very much. I was just sort of in the middle of saying, I was sort of getting around to my point, which is that any of these entities would love to have $5 million. With $5 million, they could demonstrate success. They could, evaluate success differently. I mean, $5 million is just a big chunk of money for a pilot. And we're trying to give money to folks so that they can tell us this was successful. This generated a lot of activity, jobs, revenue, economic benefit. And, they'd all like to have $5 million. So it just feels like it feels like a very big chunk of money, for one program when they all want to demonstrate success in an urgent time. And it doesn't mean we can't say, wow, they were A+ for putting their, metrics out there for getting a lot of supporters. That means we can build gradually toward something like 5 million, but it seems like a lot when everybody's asking for a little bit to show that they can add value in the long term in the state.
I think they will add value long term. I think we need to start a little smaller. They had a pilot, as we know, this summer that was very successful, but with a very small amount of money. Anyway, I think we should start with less, and because I do think that our focus really needs to still be on recovery grants for businesses.
Okay. Well, this is a place where it's the largest of the small ticket items. So let's hold off on the figure at this point until we see what we back into for the other numbers, and then we can decide on this. Tourism and marketing. The governor came in for a $2 million request, and it went up to $2.5 million. I would like to suggest we do $1 million for direct marketing and $1 million for consumer stimulus. Senator Clarkson always corrects me on the term, but I'd like to see, and I'd like to target that money to somehow prioritize it. So I think the restaurants and some other groups are about to get a ton of money through a separate grant. So I'd like to target the consumer stimulus to the retail establishments in our state. So the discount programs, whatever they do, and when they give out the money to the local chambers of commerce, they say it should be used for getting people into stores as opposed to restaurants.
I think I listened to Heather this morning, and I'd love to give her a little bit more flexibility. I after this morning, I would think it might be more like 1.5 for marketing and 500,000 for the stimulus, the regional stimulus, consumer stimulus. But I'm easy either way. But I think 2 is a good figure to land on for tourism and marketing, whether we leave it a little bit more flexible, because I think Heather's incredibly creative. And I think that what she has done, if you look at all her campaigns, I think we're lucky to have her. Sometimes I feel like I'd love to just unleash her, but I know we can't do that. But anyway, that's what I was thinking. This morning, I was thinking more like 1.5 and 500,000, but I think 2 is a good final figure for tourism and marketing.
I'm not a big fan of direct marketing. I mean, I've heard in my past from, I don't know if it's Senator Rahm was asking the question, from businesses or lodging establishments, I think, saying, that's not where we need to put our money, somehow give it directly to us as opposed to, and a lot of these, big inns and advertise Vermont for their own hotels and things like that. Vermont gets out there in those things. A statewide plan is, I just think the money could be better used. So I'm having difficulty even doing one and one, but I heard you and Senator Brock saying that they think there should be some element of direct marketing. I do remember uh, Betsy Bishop on the chamber, really making the hard pitch for $500,000 a couple of years ago. And now the House is giving $2.5 million. It almost seems like if you don't give $10 million or more, like maybe some other states do, and just give this incremental approach, you're not going to make a big difference. I think our remote worker program did more for marketing the state than the tourism marketing that comes out of the department. So yeah, that's my.
Well, one question, Mr. Chair, is where that money is actually used. If you're doing a national marketing campaign, it gets dissipated very quickly. If you do a focus campaign, and I think that's one of the things we're talking about, either to focus on particular areas to bring tourist business in, or to focus on particular populations to bring business in. And we've talked, for example, about bringing in more BIPOC tourists. And again, that's a focus. And that focus is not going to be done by private businesses. The focus has got to be done by state marketing. And I think there's a role for both.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, I just want to throw out, because I've had this idea and it's far too late for doing it, but my idea was, in terms of consumer stimulus, is those like dividend books that are real thick that have all the discounts in them for all the businesses. Just give that book out to every Vermonter, and the businesses themselves match the discount, and it gets people spending and out into the stores. I think that would be a crazy idea, and it would stimulate the economy. But
But it's that old argument again of the town that's got $1,000 in it, and their economy is based upon passing $10 from each person to the next person, but the total pot doesn't increase. With marketing outside of the state, the pot increases.
Yeah, I agree.
So, I don't have a problem giving her some money that she's giving Heather some of the money she's asking for. This is where I would try and sort of make a stand for $500,000 to go to back to work incentives and help people go back to work, because these are the industries that are saying we need workers. We need people. We will take more jobs if we have more people working. And they, so many of the folks in the service and tourism industry that I've talked to said they had targets to hire 60 people, have more people on the job around the state helping with events and weddings, and they don't have those people yet. And so,
so
they were finally
I would
given
be to
money.
support that idea, provided that there was some meat on it that says, well, what does this $500,000 buy? What would they do with it that would actually incent people to go to work?
Are we talking about Sarah Buxton's proposal she sent us all?
no, but so here's the deal. Sarah Buxton sent us a proposal for $500,000.
So let's call it.
That's totally separate and apart from this page, but it raises the issue that Senator Rahm just raised. Are there other things outside this page that we want to suggest? And I just threw up my hands last night when I read Sarah Buxton's thing. I mean, it's too little, too late. We're setting up a new program. We don't know how it would be administered, what the problems would be, and in 24 hours to set up a work incentive program as a committee chair, it's really freaky to me. I mean, when are we going to next hear that the mainframe's going to break if we ask them to do this? Those kinds of things. It's just, I mean, it's the kind of thing that takes some time. So I just need to encourage the committee to stay within
Okay.
confines of the four corners of this page. And I'm not shy and I'm known for my crazy ideas, but I just think it's too late for the 45 minutes we have left to start diverting money into better things. And I agree that they could be better, but
Well, and it's an immediate need. I do think that at some point we haven't been asking, how do we immediately incent people to get back? But I'm hopeful. Anyway, just
okay,
to
so let's move on and
Let's
say
keep going.
that we're going to go to 2 million on this, and we'll
Yeah.
decide a little bit later how to divide that 2 million. And we can put more guardrails on it if we, want to talk about prioritizing certain kinds of advertising or stimulus.
Uh,
Um, the
move on.
BIPOC business development grants, I can't imagine we're not okay with 100,000
I'm
there.
fine with that.
I would add more money, but that's me. I mean, I would take money away from other things. They have been at the back of the line, and it just doesn't feel like a lot of money for,
Right.
trying to launch this effort.
Okay, well, we could say, we could double that and just put a marker down, tell the House that, we think it's not enough, and see where that goes. I think I can't remember whether we heard from anybody whether that was insufficient. I know I raised the question both on the timing and the amount of money, whether it was.
I think the timing, there was more concern about. Curtis and Mark both raised the timing issue. I think the timing, we can always address more money into whatever they come up with as a proposal for what to hang it on. But this is what's been asked for. I mean, we can keep it out there as something we might want to add to if we have extra money, but I don't think we're going to have it. And I would rather revisit it and hang more meat on the bones of whatever they come up with and give them more time for their work. I thought
I've
that
got obviously some substantive concerns about the proposal. Clearly, I think if we're asking in this case for a study, I just want to make sure that the study is broad enough. One of the things that we heard yesterday, for example, is that the reason for the need to conduct the study to construct some other vehicles to do the outreach is because existing organizations aren't doing it or won't do it, or people don't trust them to do it. And I'd like to hear, and we've heard nothing in terms of a counter to that, and we've heard nothing as to why. Hopefully, this study will go to the extent of asking those questions. Why isn't the Chamber of Commerce successful? Why aren't other business organizations successful in terms of extending that outreach? And is that, in fact, another and better approach to actually getting a more holistic result? And I'm not sure that the study as designed right now will do that, but those are among my biggest concerns. I would not increase this at this point. I'd want to see what they produce.
Well, I think we heard, it's a small amount of money to argue over for our limited time, but I just want to say, I mean, I haven't seen any of the chambers work harder to interpret materials or to get things out in other languages or to reach into those, business areas and meet people far more than halfway. I think we'd hear that from those folks themselves. And Curtis said, he spent tens of thousands of dollars just on interpretive services because these are businesses that need a lot of lingual and technical support to understand in plain English what they're supposed to apply for and what's happening. So, it is more expensive to help people who are learning a lot of new systems to participate.
Well, the issue about language and translation, I understand. The issues otherwise about access is something that we have not probed, and we have not heard from anyone other than the advocates who are focusing on these services, some of which have a profit motive involved in terms of their consulting.
I think you just said, Senator Brock, that you want to advertise to more BIPOC folks, right, in New York City, et cetera. They want to come and know about the BIPOC businesses that exist. They want to patronize those businesses. They want to know that there's a trail of businesses that they can support where they feel comfortable. We're just scratching the surface on that. And it would be a huge undertaking to help us attract the kind of people who want to come to the state and also feel safe and reflected in the population and the services that they receive when they get here.
Right. And I think that let's move forward. I think this study is great. I think we're going to know so much more in January. And what we might ask for in terms of the language is an interim study so that we can help put more meat on the bones of whatever they're coming up with, give them more time for the whole work, but ask for an interim report so that we can act on some of that in January.
That's fine.
So we have more time next week to deal with language on all of this within 159. But I'm hearing sort of a little bit of a mixed message. It's small enough that we can move on in terms of whether we want to add some money to the $100,000. Okay, going to capital, we'll pass over economic recovery grants because we'll back into that.
But wait a minute, you have the new remote worker. We're putting in $1 million.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm working off a different sheet than you are. That was an updated sheet. We're going to put $1 million in that as an S62.
Right.
Okay. Capital. So we heard from Michael Snyder and Lewis Porter. They see an opportunity here and a need to double what was originally asked for. Actually, not to double, but to put another 5 million into outdoor trails and fishing and wildlife projects. But they did get the $5 million in 315. They also got $5 million for outdoor recreation. So I think, and I think the Appropriations Committee shares this, that we should just strike this added request. They got more money than they ever thought they were going to get in $10 million in those two agencies for capital projects in 315. So I don't think we should fund any more.
Yeah. And in light of that, Mr. Chair, I think that we're going to have more money in the infrastructure bill, the jobs bill that's coming.
Right.
I really think this kind of these very important projects, we have put off investing in our natural asset that it actually is a huge economic development stimulus, our state parks and our fishing opportunities. So I do think it's critically important, but I also think come January, we're going to understand, A, we'll have guidance, and B, we'll have more money, hopefully, through infrastructure. And these are all infrastructure things. So I would hope that we could fund it fully in next January. But so I would support you on this decision to put this off. Again, it's a future spend. It's not like we don't want to spend it, but it's a future spend, I think, once we're clear on the infrastructure amounts. But to go to the community challenge grants, which I support, I did look, Mr. Chair, and the 4 communities that have already gotten money, that was only 1.9 million between 4 communities. If we want to match it, I would reduce this to 2 million.
I was going to suggest something similar, that I was not a fan of this. It sounded very amorphous to me, and they were unsuccessful in their primary thing. But what I like about it is the fact that the Federal Reserve Bank of Boston, even though we're putting the money in, will stay engaged and watch over this project and do the auditing and the metrics, and that's sort of a matching in-kind support of a very sophisticated organization. So I've been turned around on this, but I did have the same thought, that why are these 4 who didn't make the cut getting more money than the 4 that did make the cut? So I would go to 1.9 just to catch it.
So you're suggesting 1.9 instead of 2?
Yeah, I mean, no big deal, but that's what I would do.
That exactly matches what the other 4 towns got, which was 1.9.
Okay.
It was 3. Yeah, it was.
So let's unless somebody has any other thoughts on that, let's move on. Well, let's make sure we deal with recovery grants and RDCs. What I would suggest, as we get to the figure we need to save, that we just, and keep in mind, I'm committed to working on language next week on these things. I need permission from the Chair of Appropriations that we have time to do that. But I mean, in some ways, we could say to her, even though she votes out a budget with some general language with the money, we can say, we're going to propose a floor amendment. We want to define these programs a little further. We just don't have the time to do that right now. And that I imagine that, I don't know what the time frame is, the pro tem might know better, but I can't imagine we're going to be voting on the budget before next Wednesday or Thursday. And that would give us some time, Monday and Tuesday, to suggest language that I think the Appropriations Committee and the full Senate would like to see, as opposed to a one sentence thing. Here's $50 million or here's $22 million. So I
Mr.
think people will feel better about it. But what I'm going to suggest here, for ease of simplicity, is that whatever we need to save from this $50 and $22 million for FY22 is we just do it proportionally out of these two programs. So, you know, if it's like we have to save $20 million, $30 million, maybe 20 of it comes out of recovery grants and $10 million comes out of, I'll just do the math proportionally. Just say we need to save a percentage of this amount of 72. So this 22 is that percentage of 72. So they get cut by that much or get postponed by that much into FY23.
So, Mr. Chair, our spending spree this morning that we've just discussed, if we kept it to what we talked about, would be 9.8 million. So if we deduct that from 40, that leaves us with 30.2 to spend at the moment between those two. And I think I have to say I focus more. I think capital investments we have some time on. I think business recovery is more immediate. And I would tend to put more in recovery grants and capital. I think we have time on.
Do you want to do anything for capital?
Oh yeah, I think
We could postpone the full 22 if you want.
I think it is worth having some in there because I think you want to have them spend time teeing up those proposals so that they're ready to spend it next year when that money gets appropriated.
Okay.
So I think that there should be some money there to do exactly that work, which is tee up, identify, because it's going to take work to identify these regional priorities and get them in shape enough so that they're shovel ready by next year.
Okay. Well, let me get back to the committee with a suggested breakout based upon those comments. I do want to go back to micro businesses and also to economic recovery grants. If you notice, I think we should lower micro businesses by the 500,000 they got in 315. That's consistent with what we're doing in other places. And also off the top of economic recovery grants, we should acknowledge that they got $10 million in H315. That'll make it a little easier to get to our target cuts, but
So
I
you're
think 1.5 for micro businesses. Yeah.
so that would take us up to 30.7 to divide between the others.
Right. And then also there's $10 million that economic recovery grants got in 315. So that would lower it too. If you look at the 12.6 and the 80, our starting number, if we don't deduct these numbers under 315, is more like 92.6. But it brings it down to 77.6 or something like that if we take out the 15.5.
Right.
So I think we should be consistent and do that. Recognize that this 315 is a prepayment on it was a mini budget bill that offsets or prepays some of the budget items that the governor and the House are suggesting.
So, Mr. Chair, do you want to talk about the Montreal Trade Office? And
I do. We have some time. We still have 15 minutes.
Because
So-
those are not in the $40 million ask, but
No, we can forget about that. I'll get back to you with some suggestions on these and a summary of what we've talked about so far. But let's talk about the general fund thing. The seed capital is, we only have two really to talk about. The seed capital is the tougher one. It's bigger. I certainly would like to explore doing it if we can do it out of ARPA monies. But I don't know whether I want to do it at that level out of general fund monies or any other funds other than general funds. So,
maybe we should wait and hear what's happening with Fast Capital, and the other program. And is Cassie going to get back to us?
yeah, she said she would get back to us and talk to David and talk to anybody else she can find out. I
We
can
got some input from
I can call
David.
AFO.
Today.
Sorry?
I say we got some input. I think an email went out to everybody today from David in answer to at least a part of what we talked about this morning.
Right.
Yeah.
And spoke with one of his representatives subsequent to our discussion. And I expect that he will get back to us, filling in the blanks to answer some of the questions we raised today regarding return and structure and the amount of return to date. So there will be some more information I think that we'll have later today.
Okay. And also I'm gonna get in touch with JFO to see if the same question that we asked Cassie to look into, to see if they have any thoughts of whether we can fund this through ARPA. I don't know if
I think you have a very good point, though, that you made today, Mr. Chair, and that was that in the event, just given the long timeline of VC funding, that in the event that comes back, it has to go back to the government, that still would not necessarily be a bad thing as far as our economic development is concerned. But as you asked the question, one of the questions would be, if we are required to return funds to the government, do we have to return to them just the amount of money that is, quote, borrowed, treating it like a loan, but a premium that we get on that borrowed funds can stay with us and stay in the fund?
Yep.
You know, the whole idea of venture capital funding is, you have these high risk investments and you invest $1, and on the ones that are successful, you get $4 back. So do we have a situation in which we have to pay the $1 that was the investment back to the federal government? And can we keep the 3 that we may gain?
Got it. Okay. Let's see if we can find that out. And on the Montreal Trade Office, the only thing I can think of there is maybe pushing it out a little bit. I think we asked Joan Goldstein, I said, what if you got it's $300,000. It says specifically in the bill over a 2-year period. What if we started it up later? Could the amount of general fund in FY22 be less, given the fact that the border's closed? Maybe you're not going to get on this until January. We could turn that 300,000, which is right now 150 in each of the next 2 fiscal years, and we can maybe just suggest 75,000 starting in FY22 as a suggestion. If they, obviously we're not going to fall on our sword on this in terms of micromanaging this 300,000. It's probably, I think what Senate Appropriations really wants is they just want to say, do you support this or not? But one alternative could say, yes, we support it, but we want to start in January, and that would cost you 75,000 in FY22. Just a thought.
I think there are higher priorities for this money right now. I just didn't even hear this well argued for, honestly. That's how I feel.
Anybody else?
I've lost the thread. Sorry, I was dealing with something I apologize. Remind me what bucket we're talking about right now?
General fund, the House put $300,000
Oh, for Montreal.
trade office over 2-year period.
Right, right. And you guys are landing on doing it next year rather than this year, given the border closing?
I just said that 300,000 is 150,000 in each of the next 2 fiscal years. If we said start this up, spending money in January, that would reduce FY22 to 75,000. I think Keisha came back with a valid point. She's not ready to fund it at all.
So it's our largest trade partner, Canada. I think what this money is addressing is our largest trade partner and are wanting to invest more in creating opportunities for their further investment in the United States and in Vermont. So I would support getting it started in as much as they're able to, so that it's ready again to hit the ground running. I'm not sure that it was 150 per year. I thought it was 300,000 per year, so that was 600,000 total spend. But I may be wrong on that.
I'm going to look it up right now.
Okay, great. And so I would, to that end, I would look at like 150 for this year's budget, because it'll be basically half a year. But I do think that it would be helpful to have some of that work done to get us ready for a robust presence. We had one before, and I'd love to further explore what happened and what happened to that.
I think I think it's a very important piece, and certainly the economy of Northern Vermont along the border where I am, for example, that relationship with Canada, and particularly the number of businesses that have started up here that have put operations in the United States from Quebec is very significant, and I think it has tremendous potential for us. We're within less than an hour, particularly with the new highway going in, from a market that is larger than any market within our reach, and the increasing our contact, our availability, and what we do to leverage that, I think is tremendously important.
Yep, I agree.
I feel like, so I feel like I heard you say it's happening now, so do we have more data about what is happening? I mean, I'd love to put money into, understanding these trends, but I don't understand what this money is for. It's creating a Canadian relations person. And do they live in Canada? Like, is this a job we're creating for someone in Canada? Where are they?
No.
What?
It's for investment from Canada into the United States. It's for leveraging the extension, for example, of Canadian businesses to open facilities across the border in the U.S. In order to facilitate trade. It certainly relates to dealing with the import-export issues surrounding this, to get people in Canada to buy more product, particularly businesses to buy more business-related products from companies here in the United States. So there are a whole variety of things that this office certainly could and should do. But it's to in effect, market Vermont to Canada.
Well,
and particularly to Quebec.
And to their businesses
and it's business related as opposed to tourism related, which is an entirely separate issue.
It's not anything, right?
So the language is 300,000 is appropriated from the general fund to ACCD to provide funding for up to 2 years to contract with a foreign trade representative consistent with section 14 of this act. So it's not 600,000, it's 300,000, but I guess they envision that to hire this person, they've got to sign a 2-year contract. I'm not sure that's the case. They have a report back in here on January 15, 2022. So my guess is you could write a contract that says when this report comes back, if the metrics, and there's all kinds of metrics here, that they're supposed to report. And then if it's not working, I guess they could end the contract. So a middle ground might be to say, you know, instead of appropriating 300,000 for a 2-year contract, we can do either 75 or 150 for a 1-year contract and renew it. I unfortunately don't have section 14. My last page is ripped off. I don't know if anybody has it, but I don't know what.
I can look it up really quickly.
When I hear contract with a foreign trade representative, I don't hear a guarantee that this is a Vermont job.
I'm
Other people?
I thought I heard testimony that it was a Vermont job. Because remember, I asked about Tim Tierney and why this wasn't in Tim's wheelhouse. And I thought I understood. We can clarify that. We have a day to clarify that.
It sounds like a lobbyist position, and I'm sure you can get either an American or a Canadian. If
Yeah,
they're-
or a firm, which I think was also an option and is probably the more logical option. But that's exactly what it is.
And
Yeah.
you think that
Intermediary. And my
what-
sense is that this is not a focus on creating a Vermont job. This is a focus on getting a result. And the result may come from hiring a Canadian who is well-connected or a Canadian firm that is well-connected in doing this kind of work. It's the result we're looking for. This isn't a jobs bill.
I'm not averse to leaving this in. I would like to have a midpoint opt-out.
Yeah.
And
Fine.
Well, let's tentatively put 150 and then
I'll talk to JFO and see if this could be rewritten in a way and to lower the number.
If,
the
and if someone could find out what do New Hampshire and Maine spend on this kind of position, and does this position exist in their state, or are we hiring someone in DC or Canada? I think those are legitimate questions. I think we should be creating jobs in our state right now.
Okay.
Oh, I agree. We all agree. I mean, I don't think we disagree on that. I think that I'm just trying to find what section 14 are you talking about? Not of H-159. Which one? I'm lost. Where were you, Mr. Chair?
It says consistent with section 14 of this act, which I
Oh,
assume,
but it's an act. That must be 315. Is that 315?
no, it's a 159.
Well,
Is
section 14 does not is part of the seed capital proposal.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah. So-
So they made, there's a drafting error then. So maybe I'm not missing the last page. I don't know.
Anyway, let me,
I don't think section 14 is going to tell us a lot anyhow, but
So-
I don't have it in front of me.
in Joan's testimony where the proposal is flushed out. Where is it?
Okay, I think I've got, look for an email from me during the course of the day. I think I've got enough to work with here. I've got some questions to answer. I think we made the progress we need. I think we're on the verge of coming up with filling in the blanks of all these question marks for Jane Kitchell. And appreciate everybody's time. Unless anybody has more at this point, we can finish a couple of minutes early.
Great, thank you.
Right.
Thank you.
Allison, look for that link, okay?
So, Randy, could you stay on for a second? And
Yep.